Hello, hi everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for willing to come back, or maybe it's your first time and want to just play the part 5 of 8 Global Female Leadership Summit PSA Afghanistan. Tariq Mohammadi is in your service today, presenting 4 more speakers. The first speaker of our part 5 loved the power of community, loved the power of society, and want to share a beautiful story that called This Little Girl Is Me. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from Lavina Tanapati.
My favorite TV shows when I was growing up were Wonder Woman, The Bionic Woman, and Charlie's Angels. I loved everything about these shows. The fashion, the witty dialogue, the plot lines where the heroine always comes up on top. I didn't know it at the time, of course, but now that I reflect on my childhood TV viewing, I see that I was choosing programs and loving programs where there was a strong female lead. These shows, the women on these shows, they were clever, they were beautiful, they were strong. They were universally admired for their extraordinariness. I grew up believing these things were possible. That was my backdrop of transition into adulthood. I did not believe feminism was necessary anymore. I believed I was equal and that I would receive equal opportunities in education, employment, and to an extent, that was true for me, personally. But objectively, that's not what happened with women around the world. The World Economic Forum estimates that in 2021, this was their 2021 estimation, that we are 130.6 years away from gender parity. And with the pandemic raging around the world, it set closing the gender gap back by at least a generation. So these lockdowns, the business and school closures, travel restrictions, it's affected everyone, but not everyone was affected equally. And as we open up and as the world returns to some semblance of normality, we are realizing that women bore the brunt of the fallout and are continuing to bear the burdens of the pandemic unequally. The other way we know we're not yet equal is, in spite of being half the population on the planet, is that the UN, when setting their Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, listed gender equality as SDG 5. No one sets goals for anything they've already achieved, right? So we're still working towards equality. And if we believe that gender equality is a goal, then there is still a role for feminism today. Why am I telling you this? Maybe you already know it, or perhaps you decided that you don't believe it. But what I'd like you to walk away with today is to look at things just a little bit differently. I want you to look at the world and see the systemic way in which our societies and economies hold women back. Instead of asking what's wrong with women, that they cannot succeed in the world today equally with men, let's ask, what is happening to them to hold them back? We keep telling women to lean in, to be confident, to stay in the workforce, to take risks. But we don't see that our current system was never built with women in mind. Women who succeed today are extraordinary. They are working twice as hard, navigating unspoken rules and boundaries constantly, and they're fighting an uphill battle. The next generation is watching this with alarm. For us to create a real generational shift, we need to stop fixing women and start fixing systems instead. It is our systems that are the problem, not our women and girls. We are at the starting point of a new economic system. It's being called the knowledge economy, Web3, all new things, wonderful and internet-based. It is crucial that women are part of shaping this new economy and are not just its consumers. We missed out on shaping the Industrial Revolution because the laws essentially saw us as things, chattels to be traded. It denied women an education and refused us the right to vote. And even then, some extraordinary women managed to rise to the top. Now we have the opportunity to shape the framework of the future. We must not squander it or allow ourselves to be excluded from it. There is nothing about technology that precludes women and girls. A woman, Ava Lovelace, was crucial as an early pioneer in computing. Many years ago, I went to London and actually saw this plaque outside her house in London, where she's acknowledged as one of the founding pioneers in the field of computing. The first coders were not men. They were the women code breakers of the Second World War. Alan Turing of The Beautiful Mind is acknowledged for cracking the Enigma codes, but it really couldn't have been possible without the women code breakers that deciphered cards and cards and cards of code. We are not intrinsically bad at technology. There are just not enough women in there yet to pave the way. But on the positive side, we have for the first time a critical mass of women in leadership at all levels, in almost all industries and professions. So what do we do next? How do we ensure that the world that is being created includes all its people? The most important starting point is that we need to stop talking about women as if we were a minority. We are not. We are almost exactly half the population. But we earn about half of what men earn globally. Our ideas fare even worse and are acknowledged only a fraction of the time. The Nobel Prize, for instance, only 6% of the prizes have been awarded to women. 6%. That's 59 out of 975 prizes over a 120-year period. 2 of those were won by Marie Curie. When asked a picture of a genius, we almost always picture Albert Einstein. But it's really Marie Curie that we should picture. She is still the only person, male or female, to have won 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences, ever. She won for physics in the second year of the Nobel's founding in 1903, and her second one was in 1911 for chemistry. What is really extraordinary is that she won it at a time when most girls were still not being allowed to have a formal education, and certainly not one that included the sciences. And even with her 2 Nobel Prizes, the French Academy of Sciences rejected her admission. Women pioneers like Marie Curie are crucial in carving new paths, but they are obviously not enough. We need extraordinary women so we can have heroines, role models to look up to. But as Marie Curie shows, one extraordinary woman can only do so much. We need a critical mass of women in pioneering and leading roles before we can start seeing systemic change. I love the story of Marie Curie because she challenges the assumption that our world, as we have it today, is built entirely by men in the starring roles, and women just supporting actors. In spite of being cast constantly in secondary roles, women have made extraordinary contributions to almost all aspects of life, business, in politics, and yes, even in science. That we don't know their names is the great deficit of our education. The wonderful thing about living today is that we don't have to accept this vision of the world, written by men, about men. I'm not asking to erase men from history. I'm just asking that we add the women. Did you know that the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2020, just recently, went to 2 women for the first time? They developed the tools that edit DNA. It was the first time any of the science prizes was awarded to 2 women without a male collaborator. Their names are Emanuela Charpentier and Jennifer Doudna. You probably already know that Kamala Harris is the first female vice president in the United States. But did you know that the EU has two women in two of its most powerful positions today. Ursula von der Leyen, a mother of 7, is the president of the European Commission. Christine Lagarde, a mother of 2, is the president of the European Central Bank. Both of them championed by Angela Merkel during her time as Chancellor of Germany. This is the importance of having a critical matrix of women in leadership to create change. This is how we can thrive, by supporting each other. All this does not mean that we as women and girls don't need to make some changes. We do. We can absolutely do more to help ourselves and each other. Last year, I was part of the Inspiring Girls International #ThisLittleGirlIsMe campaign. It was in the run-up to the International Day of the Girl, which happens on the 11th of October. Perhaps this is the first time some of you have even heard of the International Day of the Girl. It was adopted by the UN 10 years ago, and it's observed every year on the 11th of October. It's part of the UN's efforts towards SDG 5, or gender equality. It recognizes the rights of girls and the unique challenges that girls face in the world. From education to cultural practices like child marriage, there are many factors that hold girls back from fulfilling their full potential. This year, the This Little Girl Is Me campaign prompted thousands and thousands of women from around the world to share their stories of growth, of trauma, of resilience, and of joy. Check out the hashtag #ThisLittleGirlIsMe on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and you will find stories from women from around the world. There were famous women like Sheryl Sandberg and Melinda Gates, and even former Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard wrote her story. And of course, regular women like me shared our This Little Girl Is Me story. In these stories, we hope that we have impacted many girls to see her world as full of possibilities that she might not have imagined for herself. Research from InTribe in 2019 showed that 70% of girls feel differently about their futures after hearing from women role models. What I hope that this campaign has is that it's inspired girls everywhere to think big. I first heard about Inspiring Girls while I was serving as Vice President at the Singapore Council for Women's Organizations, SCWO. I met the founder and global chair of Inspiring Girls in London 3 years ago. Miriam Gonzalez Durantes trusted me to become the founding chair of Inspiring Girls in Singapore, the first in Asia to have its own Inspiring Girls program. Inspiring Girls brings the power of role models to girls from around the world. And as the saying goes, she can be what she can see. The stories were told with the hashtag #ThisLittleGirlIsMe were also important because girls learned with each story that it was not just one story for women. If we only tell one story about women, it leads to assumptions and stereotypes that these are almost always incomplete. Women are half the planet, and yet we do not share half its wealth or influence, and there are complex forces holding us back. We are still the source of all human life, and logically, this should have at least equalized us in the power stakes. Instead, the fact that we make all the people on the planet is used to hold us down with systems that are designed with only men and the male experience in mind. If it considered women, it would take into account that women almost everywhere live nearly a decade longer than men, but need to take a decade out in the middle to raise our families. And yet in most places, men and women still have the same retirement age. This means that women will almost never catch up when they take family sabbaticals, and they are not given the opportunity to catch up later in life when they can. The work life we had pre-pandemic assumed that there was someone at home, to manage life and families, or that a woman would work a double shift, work at work and work at home. The move to flexible work has definitely helped some women, but placed an even heavier burden on others. The truth is, companies, countries, they all barely ever consider the needs of women in their planning. But why are we surprised by that? Drugs are still only tested on men. Car safety belts are only tested on men. and quite often cause serious injuries for women. Even our cities and public transport systems are built with men in mind. I highly recommend Caroline Criado Perez's book, Invisible Women, Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men, if you'd like to learn more about this. Women are not the same, and women are not perfect. We do, however, deserve to be seen in all our complexity. We do not all think alike, and nor should we be expected to. We are good, we are bad, we are bright, and we are dull. We are hardworking, and we are lazy. We are strong, and we are fragile. We cannot all be expected to think the same way or to hold the same political or economic views. With the many stories that are being told through This Little Girl Is Me campaign, I hope that women are freed from the constraints of the good girl narrative that holds so many of us back. We are being freed to be imperfect. I hope that you leave here seeing that equality is not just a charitable pursuit, but an economic one. There is opportunity and growth that comes with increasing the economic and political participation of women and girls. This potential is being squandered. It's like our planet has a superpower that it does not use. McKinsey once estimated that the potential being squandered by not engaging women fully in our economies is $28 trillion US dollars. Imagine adding 28 trillion to global GDP by just allowing women to participate to their full potential in our economies. It's not just good for girls and women. Women currently do about 70% of the home and care work in the world. Many men would like to participate in their family lives, and given the cultural and societal freedom to do so, would choose different careers and different social paths. Our unequal world stifles both men and women. It stunts the emotional range for men, and it cripples the economic potential for women. It isn't just women who need work-life balance. All of us do. Before I finish, I'd like to just share 2 personal reflections with every girl and woman watching. The first is to make choices, not sacrifice in your life. I have 5 children and stepchildren. I have made no sacrifices for them. What I make every day are choices. I deeply dislike Mother's Day cards for this reason. Almost universally, they focus on the selfless sacrifice of mothers. I prefer to see mothers as superheroes in charge of their own lives, not martyrs flowing helplessly in the currents of life. By making them choices, you can powerfully claim the results of your own life. When and if you decide to go to university, get married, stay single, have children or not, stay at home, go to work, have a career, start a business. Where you can, and I know some of you can't, where you can, make choices. Don't make sacrifices. Make that choice for all the women in the world who do not have these choices, for whom many of these decisions will be made for them. Your first responsibility in life is to live your best life to its full potential. It's only then that you can truly serve your family, your community, your country, and the world. And the second reflection I'd like to share is to exercise great care and discretion when you choose a life partner. If you have that choice, please remember that for women, more than for men, marriage is a life-changing decision. There are studies from Carnegie Mellon and Harvard that show this to be true all over the world, and you've probably seen it in your own life too. Marriage and your choice of life partner will affect every aspect of your life. This is the most important, biggest job interview you will ever conduct. So make sure you choose well. Don't be easily flattered or swayed. It will decide whether you have a cheerleader for life or a tormentor for life. Your job is truly to live the best version of your life, of this life. It is how you can serve yourself and the world, communities, companies, countries. Thrive when women thrive. So let's stop trying to fix women and start fixing our systems instead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lavina. Thank you for your nice, calm, and beautiful speech. The next speaker, guess what? He is the president of Professional Speaker Association of Spain. We are honored, we are proud that we can learn and listen from him. He is the master of learnability. He teaches you how you can learn and how you can be a good catcher of wisdom or knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear and learn from Ian Gibbs.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. It's great to be part of PSAA Afghanistan's Women's Global Leadership Summit 2022, if I've got that correct. Forgive me if I haven't. My name is Ian Gibbs, and I am well, some people say that I'm an expert in learning and learnability. And as I understand that quite a few of you are still at university while you're watching this, then it seemed appropriate that I was to share with you a few ideas and observations about how to become a better learner. Now, it could be that you already are a great student. If I could just ask you to put your hand up if you consider yourself to be a top student, that would be great. Okay, a few hands up there. Yeah. Now, let me ask a slightly different question. Could you put your hand up again if you were a top student while you were at school? Okay. Well, you may notice that I don't have my hand up. And the reason for that is that when I was at school, I wasn't exactly what you could call a top student. I was a fairly average student, and to give you an idea of what I mean, for instance, I went to school in a town called Sheffield in the United Kingdom, and for instance I studied Spanish. My Spanish teacher told me that my final Spanish grade was the worst in the history of the school, which bizarrely I'm quite proud of. And my English, for instance, my written English was so bad that my English teacher wouldn't even allow me to sit the final exam. He said it was a waste of time, there was no chance of me passing it. So, you know, I was okay in maths and science, and I was quite good at drawing, so I was good at art. But all in all, I would say I was a fairly average student. And given that my school was at the top of the hill, and my family lived at the bottom, then it's fair to say that every day was an uphill struggle in my education. Now, when I turned 16, my father persuaded me to drop most of my subjects and focus on maths and science at what's called A level in the United Kingdom. And that's when something quite strange happened. I suddenly became really intelligent. What I mean by that is that all those facts and figures and formula all started to fit together. I started to get it. I started to enjoy it. I became a top student. And far from being an uphill struggle, I practically ran up that hill every day to get to school because it was going well. And my final grades were so good in maths and science that they got me into one of the top universities in the United Kingdom, St Andrews University up in Scotland, to study, would you believe, astrophysics. Seriously. And so when I started university with the attitude of a student who considered himself to be capable, intelligent, and basically I was going to have astrophysics for breakfast. It was going to be a walk through the park, as we say. It was going to be that easy. Big mistake. No. My first days at university, I discovered that whatever newfound intelligence I had acquired during my A-levels, it had inexplicably disappeared. I went back to being an average student again. Far from being a walk in the park, I found that astrophysics at university was really, really tough. It was more like trying to walk through a swamp. And essentially, it was 4 years of really hard, grinding study for me to get an average grade. And I was really disappointed. Really disappointed. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this little bit of my personal history with you is not to agonize over my education, but it's to point out that during these years, nobody, not my teachers, not my parents, not even myself, ever stopped to ask the question, why? Why was it that I went from being an average student to being a top student to being an average student again? And it's a pity that nobody asked this question, because the answer could have made a big difference for me during my university years, and it could make a big difference for you during your university years. You see, when we think of top students, we usually put it down to two different reasons. The first reason is that it's because the student goes to a good university, or they have a good teacher, or they have great support from their family. And on the other hand, they say, well, it's because the student is bright, they're intelligent, they're gifted, they are good at doing that particular subject. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me here. I completely agree that a good teacher is worth their weight in gold as far as being a good student goes. And I quite accept that some students are better than others at doing certain subjects. But the problem of focusing on these two reasons is that it makes you ignore or overlook the third factor. The third factor is that a lot of how good a student is depends on their methodology, their learning techniques, the way that they acquire the new knowledge and the new skills they're trying to learn. And it's a pity, because whereas most students can't really control which teacher they have or which university they go to, or you certainly can't control how intelligent you are, but we can control the way that we study. And this is one of the things that I do. I help students to become better students by getting them to reflect and modify their study skills. Now, in this short period of time that we have together, we don't have a lot of time to go over these different things. One of my learnability workshops takes about 3 hours. But the main point that I would like to share with you is something that is so omnipresent throughout our lives, and yet it's a technique which is so underutilized and misunderstood, that I honestly think that it is the secret key to learning that's hidden in plain sight. Now, what is it? Well, it's what I'm doing right now. It's talking. Yes, that's right. Talking. Now, you might think, what do you mean talking? That's not a study skill. Oh, yes, it is. Now, one of the things that a lot of people do not appreciate is the amount of mental effort that's required to take new ideas and new concepts that we've just acquired that are sitting in our memories at the back of our brains, and try and bring them forward to the front and force them into a set of neuronal structures which allows us to create coherent conversation. Basically, trying to talk about something which you're learning at the moment is a really difficult mental process. And if you don't believe me, then try it for yourself. Just sit down with one of your classmates and put into words what it is that you've just been studying. And you should find that it requires quite a lot of effort. And it creates a lot of frustration because you think that you understand something, but you can't find the words to express it. And at that moment, when you are making that effort, then that is when real learning is taking place. Now, this in itself is nothing new. About 100 years ago, for instance, you may have heard of the scientist Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein, who developed the two theories of relativity, had a cleaner, a housekeeper. And what he tried to do, whenever he could, was he would get his house cleaner into his office, and he would try to explain to her the ideas that he was coming up with about general relativity. Now, the reason that he did this is not because he was particularly interested in his housekeeper being the second person on the planet to understand the theory of general relativity. He did it because what he realized is that when he came to try to talk about something that he was trying to learn, he realized that he ended up learning it better. Now, although this idea has been around for hundreds of years, it's not generally been accepted into mainstream education. Now, I don't know what your university is like. I've never been there. But it's probable that it's got a library with shelves, books, tables, students, reading, studying, sleeping. You know, I've seen it. And these sort of libraries are the same almost worldwide. Now, the reason why I mention this is because a university in England called Leicester University has, in the last 10 years, finally realized the importance of talking and debating conversations as a learning technique. And so what they did is that they spent millions of pounds redesigning and rebuilding their library. And now if you were to go to Leicester University and visit their library, you would see that approximately one-third of their library space is now dedicated to what they call pods. And pods are small, soundproofed little rooms that are expressly there for students to get together in groups of 3 or 4 and to talk, debate, or in some cases violently argue about the things that they're studying. And the reason why Leicester University has invested these millions of pounds in doing it is because they have finally realized the importance of vocalizing, of talking about the ideas that you are trying to learn. When you talk and you debate new ideas, you learn them better. Now, how does this fit together with what I was talking about earlier about my own learning experiences? Well, it's certainly not because my school realized the value of talking about the things that we were learning. And it's not even because somebody explained to me that it was a good idea to start talking about what you're learning. What happened when I was studying my A-levels for those 2 years before university, during the school timetable, we actually had gaps. We had certain times of the day when we had space. We didn't have anything to study. And so we had a choice. As students, we could just relax, chat, and do nothing. Or we could be sneaky. When I say sneaky, I mean we could do our homework that we were supposed to do after school alone. We could do that together. And so what we did, a group of us would go off, we'd find a quiet corner, and we would do our homework together. And you can imagine the conversation. It would be like, all right, what question do we have to do now? Well, we have to do question number 6. All right, and how do we do that? I'm not sure. Well, maybe we could try doing it like this. Yeah, but if we did it like that, then what about this? Etc. And we would discuss, debate, share, and help each other do this homework. Right? And of course, what Einstein knew and what Leicester University knows now is that this business, this process, activity of doing our homework together and discussing the ideas is a great way of learning things. Now, the irony here is that at the time we thought that we were doing something wrong. We thought that we were cheating. We thought that the right way to study was to go back home and individually, by ourselves, try to read, go through our notes, and do our homework independently. We thought that the idea of working as a group and discussing things was wrong. And because of that, when I got to university, I thought, right, I want to do it the best that I can. And so I didn't make any effort to get together with my classmates, my friends, and discuss, debate, talk about the things that I was learning. And I honestly think that that's a large part of the reason why I found university study so difficult. Now, what this means then is that if you are in education, if you're a student, then appreciate the importance of getting together with your friends and talking about the ideas that you're trying to learn. don't be afraid to do your homework together. Don't be afraid to talk about the problems that you're having and helping each other, because it really is a great way of learning stuff. And if you happen to be in education, if you're a teacher or a professor, then give your students more time to debate and talk about it. Encourage them to share their ideas, to vocalize their thoughts. And in the case that you're a parent, if you're the mum and dad or brother and sister of somebody who is in education, then sitting down occasionally with them and saying, what did you do at school today? What are you studying? And don't just accept a one-word answer. Encourage them to explain their ideas, and when you see that they're finding it difficult to put their thoughts into words, give them a pat on the back, give them some encouragement, because they really are making a huge mental effort to be able to put their thoughts into words. And when they do that, then they really are learning better. So, I hope that little bit of information is helpful for you. It would certainly have been helpful for me. I wish you all the best with your studies. I wish you all the best with your careers. And I hope that maybe one day we can meet each other face to face. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ian. That was so nice. The next speaker is from Afghanistan originally. She is now in Australia. She is a lover of people who help other people. She is a community servant. She helps people with the big problems or small problems. She's from Afghanistan. I don't want to say the name, I just want to talk more about her. She defends the rights of Afghanistan females around the world, especially in Australia. She talks about them. She defends. She says the things that no one can say it. She is so brave. She is Maryam Popel Zahid. Ladies and gentlemen, let's learn and educate and get some more inspiration from dear Maryam.
Hi, my name is Maryam Zahid and I am the founder and the director of Afghan Women on the Move. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I am speaking to you all today, the Darek people, and I pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I also would like to thank the Professional Speakers Association for Afghanistan for inviting me to speak and also to be connected with so many wonderful speakers and audience around the world. For this event, I have chosen to speak about the role of Afghan women in contemporary societies. In my both personal and professional life, I've come across so many situations, comments, assumptions, perceptions about who is a good and bad woman in our communities. And I'm talking about those women that are very brave, visible, bold, and active in their families, communities, and their countries. And I often wonder why there is no or little support for them. And if I was going to take a moment to ask our impressive and wonderful audience and listeners through this channel to think about what comes to your mind when I say the word women. Is that a family, housework, cooking, shopping, headache? Well, these are the names that we get at the definition of women. For that, I'm glad that these opportunities and seminars and conferences come together so we all can talk about and challenge some of those perceptions. So I stand here and speak to you all today for you to choose to break the stereotypes and describe women for who we really are. We are strong, we are brave, we are your mothers, your sisters, your grandmothers, your aunts. And we are play many roles, yet backbone of any society we live in. For me, this platform that is connecting a lot of us around the world is very special, not because I'm speaking here, but also it gives me an opportunity to share my life story about and also talk about how I feel about what it's like to be living in countries like Afghanistan. I remember as a young girl when people were talking about respect, it was only to kind of when it comes to respect, to respect your mother, that was by listening to her. So whatever she said, you just obey her or your teacher. And all the rest of the community in the society was run by men. And Afghanistan is very male and patriarchal society, male-dominated and patriarchal society. So for that, the role of women was very limited in Afghanistan. For me and for many women back in Afghanistan, the best hope was to marry a decent man or to have a good life. But there was not much awareness about what is good life and respectful life means. I've come across a situation where women didn't know that they were abused in their relationships because they never knew the definition of violence or domestic or family violence. As I've grown up and I've studied and I've come across many informations that domestic violence does not only defined by physical violence, it's a social, it's a psychological, it is sexual, it is financial abuse that women can be put down and be disrespectful towards. So these things this platform will encourage us to share our stories and also encourage other women to stand up for what is wrong and what's right. You see, when we women do not need to have a voice. They have a voice. All they have to do is to use it, and also for people to feel encouraged to listen. So I often get asked to why I've come up with Afghan Women on the Move and what's Afghan Women on the Move is about. Afghan Women on the Move is about to help women to feel empowered and to share their stories. Afghan Women on the Move is a place for women to feel safe and connected. And since I've founded the Afghan Women on the Move, it has been a voice of hope for so many sisters, and I'm confident that this platform will grow and connect so many women and men around the globe. So for me, speaking at such opportunities, I always encourage people to look at what is or how much happening in Afghanistan, how little information and awareness and educations people are have in Afghanistan. I often speak about the role of women in society, especially in Afghanistan, and I ask what it means to be a good woman. And a lot of times I explain to the communities that the role of and expectation ascribed to women, while respectable and perfectly suited for some women, it do not encompass the multidimensional nature of others, and furthermore avenues to speak freely, from ambition and needs to define what it means for them to be a good woman without criticism and judgment. So for my day job, because I'm quite involved working with the communities, I've come across a lot of situations where women do not know their rights. They don't know what it means to have their basic human rights. And with all those multiple roles, it requires different energy from me to talk to communities and to be with women and to be with communities. But I think for us to be connected through such platform, now we can connect it with so many people to share their stories, their knowledge, their experiences, so we can help the less fortunate communities around us. So I hope someday somebody will join me to the world where we live to be an encourager, because the world has have enough critiques already. So for for me to be able to speak for you guys for a few minutes, it was my absolute honor and privilege. And I hope that as we grow and connect more, we will be able to speak more and to be able to share more. But for now, thank you very much for being here and to be connected with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your speech. That was so nice, dear Mariam. The next speaker is going to give you tips and tricks that so many people in the world, they are struggling with. So many people. It's like you delay your job. You don't want to, like postponing your job. She is giving you information and tips how you can be proactive. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from a speaker again from India. She is Vaharta Naik.
This is a story of a young, energetic woman entrepreneur who has dreams, who has goals to fulfill in her life. And she's looking forward to her life. And when the dreams come true, you know how it feels. The whole life changes. And she's standing exactly in front of a huge gate, a huge door. And she's ready to take the step forward. And the door opens. And as she steps in, she looks at that red carpet laid in front of her. And as she moves inside the big conference room, she looks around. There are banners, posters, everywhere that talks about her achievements. And as she slowly steps towards that red carpet, she can hear the audience cheering her up, applauding her loudly, calling her name. In that moment, she feels that sense of accomplishment, the sense of achievement, the sense of gratitude. And as she is walking towards the stage, she looks at that spotlight right in the center of the stage. And she knows exactly where she belongs. She moves further onto the stage, stands exactly on that spotlight, takes a deep breath, closes her eyes, gets herself ready, and the moment she opens her eyes, everything vanished. It's just gone. There are no people, no banners, posters. It's all torn. There's dust around, empty chairs lying there. There's everywhere weed, dust, cobwebs. And she wonders, where's everything gone? It was right there. That was her dream come true. She's scared. She doesn't know what to do. Standing there, alone. And somewhere very far distance, her eyes catches that attention. She looks around and she looks at that tiny little something that's shining in that corner. Out of haste, out of hope, she runs closer to look at what it is that's shining. She goes into that corner and she finds a rock. And there's something that's shining from that rock. She lifts that rock, picks the rocks in her hand, and she looks very carefully to find out that there are these gems which are stuck inside that rock. And they're putting that shining little bright light peeping out from each gem. And as she looks at carefully, she realizes that every gem reflects one of her dreams, which are stuck somewhere inside that rock. So she really wants that, she wants all the gems. So she tries to pull that up. She tries very hard from each side, from every angle. She pulls and pushes the rock to just break open somehow, that the gems that are stuck inside the rock, she can bring that up. But all her efforts are in vain. There she is, standing with a rock in her hand, with the gems stuck inside the rock, feeling that helplessness, feeling disappointed, bad, just being there, just feeling stuck in our life. Welcome and thank you so much PSA Afghanistan for this wonderful opportunity. This is Bharti Naik, and being a woman entrepreneur for over a decade now, it's a pleasure to be here on this platform, and thank you so much Tariq for inviting me on. Sometimes we take hours to take a decision. Sometimes we take days to take an action. Sometimes we take months or a year or maybe years to take that one decision, take that one action that can really change the course of our life, that can really change the whole business that we have. And that is where I looked at my own actions, I looked at my own decisions, I started looking at my own approaches towards working. And I didn't realize that when this bug of procrastination started biting me hard, maybe I delayed in sending a proposal, maybe I delayed in making that one important phone call, maybe I delayed in putting that action in place, getting that opportunity, grabbing that up. And that's where I realized that there were so many questions that were bothering me, that why I procrastinate, or rather, why people procrastinate. What is it that happens when they procrastinate? Is there something that is bothering, or can we really stop this procrastination? That is where I started studying this one word, that's procrastination. Wanted to really look deeper into it, that what is it that causes this procrastination, why people procrastinate, and how really we can overcome this. Is there a way out? Can we really break these patterns of procrastination and be proactive in our life? Can we really follow the proactive approach and be more productive personally, taking care of our life, taking care of our business, taking care of our family? Because as women entrepreneurs, we really look forward to balancing so many aspects. And many times people do ask me that, how do I manage 2, 3 businesses in my life? How do I manage my family? How do I manage my personal life? How do I manage my social life? How do I manage my health? How do I manage my finances, my relationship? And when I started thinking about it, I realized that there are certain ways that probably I have discovered. There are certain ways that I follow, and there are certain things that I must learn to make it better. And hence, when I was studying, I was researching about the subject. I also conducted a survey to hundreds of people, interviewed people, covering close to 10,000 people to find out that why do they procrastinate, what are the challenges that they face, are there any kind of negative emotions that are attached to this word. I could categorize their responses into 4 buckets. And that is where I could then understand that, yes, this is what happens, and hence people procrastinate. So if I have to quickly tell you that, taking the analogy of an iceberg, what we see as somebody's behavior of delaying a task, delaying a decision, or sometimes pushing some actions away, that is the outcome of something that has happened deep within. The first roadblock that we face is perfectionism. We are so much caged into perfectionism. We want everything to be perfect. And we have this set benchmark that 100 on 100 is perfect. Nothing less than that is what I want to give it to the world. Well, it is good to chase perfectionism. But if that is coming in your way, and if that's the roadblock that is really stopping you from completing your work and achieving the goal that you have, then there's a problem. And the principle that can help you to remove this roadblock of perfectionism and chase excellence is 70% is perfect. So you do work and put your efforts, making it really the work that you really want to give out to the world. Do that. And when it is 70% is enough, it is good enough for you that say that, yes, this is good enough to put it in the world. Let me get the feedback from the world. Let me get my experiences from the work that I'm doing. You move forward. You don't get stuck. Because completing the work is more important than just chasing that perfect work that you want to chase. The second roadblock that we face is overwhelm. We face this, or rather we are stuck in this emotional state many a times because we have so many things to achieve. We have so much to do, so many things to balance in our life. We look at our business, we look at our careers, we look at our family, we look at our own self, we look at our health, we look at our relationships, we look at our social engagement, we look at our marketing. There's so many things that we are tied up that we sometimes get overwhelmed, and this bug really hits us hard. And because we are so overwhelmed, we don't know where to start from or what is the first step to take it forward. And we start taking random action. We just react to the situation as it comes by. We react to our life. We become more reactive towards whatever we are doing. And in that randomness, sometimes we get results, sometimes we don't get results. So the principle that can really help you to come out of this roadblock is focusing on one thing at a time. And third, I would like to quote Gary Keller, his book, One Thing, that really puts us forward, that says that do one thing at a time. If it's one task completed, move to the next. If it's one goal completed, move to the next. Pick up that one action, complete it. And that will help you to get that encouragement, that motivation, the drive, keep on progressing. The third roadblock that we face is overthinking. We keep on sitting on one aspect and thinking over and over again until we fail to realize that we have started doubting our own self. We have started doubting our own capabilities, our own decisions, our own actions, our own opinions, our views, and we don't know when we start getting dependent on somebody else. We start seeking external validation from others. We simply go and tell them that, you tell me what to do and I'll just do it. Unknowingly, we give the control of our life to somebody else. Why? Because overthinking led us to doubting our own self, doubting our own image, our own identity. So the principle that can really help us to remove this roadblock is working from the future. Because when we are sitting with our goals, when we are sitting with our life, whatever we want to achieve, we look at our past, we look at our successes or failures from the past, and we want to focus on our present with all the resources that we have so that we achieve something in our future. But my dear friends, when we are looking forward to the future, when we want to achieve something in the future, we need to create something in the future that will help us, that will encourage us, motivate us to do something in the present. When we work from the future, not from the past. So what I mean when I say working from the future, creating a new identity, creating a new image, when I have that clarity, when I have that exact image, I will work in my present with all the resources that I have to achieve what is there in the future. And that will not lead me to overthinking. That will not lead me to doubting my own capabilities. The fourth roadblock, which probably all of us face, is that tiny little fear. And following this fear comes those huge, or I would say humongous list of what if. The questions, what if I do something and I fail? What if I take actions and I don't get results? What if my decision that I take goes wrong? What if I pull out all the resources and I'm a failure big time. We fail to even take that first step. Forget upon completing the task, forget upon achieving the goal. So if you really want to break this fear and come out of it, following this principle of 595 rule will help you. So what is this 595 rule? The first step, what we do is plan. We analyze what all resources do we have. We look at our timeline. We do research on whatever we want to achieve. We do a lot of comparative analysis. And then we arrive at a conclusion and then we say, that's the first step we need to take. So 95% of our time goes only in planning, researching, analyzing, comparing, and then arriving at certain conclusions. And when we arrive at a conclusion, what we do is take action. And that's just 5%. Now imagine 95% of our time has gone into planning, researching, analyzing, and 5% is action. And with that 5% of action, we are expecting 100% result. Is it possible? Let's reverse the rule. Let's make it 595. You plan enough, you do your research, look at your resources, you plan enough to take that first step. Identify that first step and take it. When you take that first step, of course you get feedback and you get some learning. You modify it, you change something, and then you take the next step. You again get some feedback, you again get some learning, you change something, and then you take the next step. And as you keep on doing this again and again, you are progressing towards whatever you want to achieve. You are going towards your goal. You are not stuck in that what if. And as you are taking step by step, changing as the feedback comes through, you are gaining the confidence to do whatever it takes to achieve my goal. So the 4 principles that help me, these 4 principles that I really take it as mantras that I have in my life, this is what I keep doing. And I keep removing these roadblocks because you never know that this procrastination, I always tell this, that procrastination is that termite that eats you up from inside and you don't even realize. We take it very casually that, yeah, we procrastinated, so what? I'll do it tomorrow. But that's a termite that eats you up from inside and we don't even realize. So my dear friends, roadblocks are going to be a part of your life. But as you apply these principles, that will help you to achieve all the goals that you want to achieve in your life. That will really help you to come out of any hiccups that you have in your life. And I would really look forward to hearing from you. Any feedback, any challenges, anything that you want to have, you can write me at bharti@bhartinayak.com, and that will be a wonderful way of taking this forward. And thank you so much for inviting me. And with all my gratitude, with all my best wishes for PSA Afghanistan. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you so much, dear Baharta. That was so nice. We're getting close to the ending of part 5. In this part, we had speakers from Spain, from India. We had so many good tips, tricks, and wisdom and information that we can apply on our life and go to a brighter future. So ladies and gentlemen, talk to your friends about this event. Talk to your relative, your family, that we are having a global female leadership summit and introducing you the top speaker in the world. Book your time for the next week. We are going to publish again 4 more speakers. Thank you so much, Tariq Muhammadi.